Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We have some technical issues. I was supposed to have my colleague with me today. Let's see if she is here. Otherwise, I will just basically, yeah, we'll go anyway. That's not a problem. So welcome, everyone, and this is the third episode of the webinar series. And we're going to be talking about how to sustain momentum in customer journey work. Super exciting. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. Let's see, there we go. And I'll share my screen. Let's see if this works. I think so. There we go. Okay. All right. So, go to the other. Thank you guys can see me now. Welcome. I said that once again. So we're going to talk about how we go from the first map to a lasting impact. How do organizations sustain momentum in customer journey work over time? And if you joined us on the previous episodes, we were talking about, on the first one, about how to get the foundation right. How do we create journey maps that are actually usable? Episode 2, we talked about how do we make journey maps matter beyond the CX team. So how do we get buy-in across the organization? And this final episode is about turning journey work into something that survives everyday priorities, reorganizations, and the shifting focus that so often can appear. So in other words, how do we make this stick? And a very common pitfall or pattern that we see is this. So you've got your customer journey work starts out strong. The workshops are well attended and everyone agrees on the problems. And then slowly the attention shifts. So you've got other initiatives taking over and the journey map is no longer actively used. I'm sure some of you have experienced this. I know for sure that I have. This usually doesn't happen because people stopped caring about the customer. This happens because nothing in the organization changed to protect that customer focus. So what works instead? So organizations that will sustain the momentum, they don't rely on enthusiasm or good intentions. They deliberately build customer journey work into existing routines, and especially decision routines. So, for example, we have journey insights that are reviewed in planning meetings. The journey map is referenced when priorities are discussed. And leaders actively ask, how does the journey tell us here, or what does the journey tell us here? Another common pitfall is that journey work stops at insights and alignment. Now, organizations that sustain momentum, they don't rely on enthusiasm or good intention. Oh, I'm sorry. I might have just gone through. Let's see. You have that kind of workshops that create understanding and everyone agrees on, this is what we have discussed and the conclusions are this, but little actually change. Okay. If journey work keeps stopping at insights, it usually because there are no clear moments where the insights are turned into decisions. So organizations that sustain momentum, they design that moment on purpose. And very practical, they make sure that every journey discussion ends with decisions and not conclusions only. So they explicitly decide these three things that you can see here. So first of all is, what do we stop doing? What do we stop doing because of this insight? The second is, and let me just pause a little bit on the stop, because without a stop decision, everything just gets added on top, and that would be too much. So the second one is, what do we start doing instead? And the third, and when it comes to what do we start doing instead, it shouldn't be like a long list or anything. It could be like one or two concrete changes. And the third is, what do we change in what we already do? So something that might look similar on the surface, but works differently for the customer. And before the meeting ends, they agree on one more thing. Where will these decisions show up next? Is it in a roadmap? Is it a backlog, a plan, or is it a follow-up meeting? So if stop, start, or change is not agreed before the meeting, ends, the insights stays an insight and momentum will fade. Okay. And just to kind of, I've been talking about decisions. So before we move on, I just want to be super clear about what I mean with decisions, because I think that's important. So I'm not talking about big strategic, decisions or vision statement here. We're talking about very concrete, everyday decisions that are already being made today. So it could be like, when do we proactively contact the customer? Or which path do we put the customer through or into? What do we require from the customer at this step? Or when do we involve support or escalate a case? And what do we stop doing because it creates friction? So these decisions shape the customer experience, whether we think about it or not. And journey work simply gives us a better basis for making those decisions. We've got another pitfall, and that is unclear ownership, because that slows everything down. So once we're clear about what decisions or which decisions we need to change, another challenge often appears, and that is unclear ownership. So CX might drive the work, facilitate the work, update the maps, and push for action. But without a clear owner for these decisions, progress will slow. So even good decisions move very slowly when no one owns the outcome. And that's the problem. Instead, I want to introduce journey ownership. So in organizations that sustain momentum, they almost every time make ownership explicit. So a journey owner is accountable for outcomes in a specific customer journey, not for maintaining the map. In practice, that means that one role will own the journey KPIs, sets priorities, and brings journey decisions into the roadmap or the backlog. Another common pitfall when you are, working customer-centric is that CX becomes the bottleneck. So when ownership and facilitation are mixed up, CX often becomes the bottleneck. It's like everything has to flow through CX, and when nothing moves, who gets blamed? It's the CX functions, so the CX roles. And I think this isn't really a people problem. It's more like an operating model problem. So what can we do instead? I would say clear roles. So successful organizations are super clear about roles, where you have journey owners that will decide and prioritize, and CX will facilitate, support, and challenge. So a simple rule of thumb is this: if CX is the one chasing implementation, something in the setup is probably not so right. Let me go through another common pitfall, and I think a lot of you have experienced this. I know for sure that I have this one too. It's good that we've made all the mistakes beforehand so that you guys don't have to. Another reason momentum fades is that journey maps become static over time. So they reflect how things were looking 6 or 12 months ago. And what happens then? Well, people will stop trusting them as a basis for a decision. So what should we do instead? Organizations that sustain momentum, they treat journey maps as living change tools. So they don't aim for perfect maps, they aim for relevant ones. And that often means updating just, 1 or 2 critical steps, linking the insights to current KPIs, and using the map as a discussion tool primarily, instead of only a documentation tool. I think this is super important to actually, and it goes back to what I said before about bringing the map into the decision forums and other meetings that you might have where the journey could influence your decisions. And when you scale the journey work, it's very common to see that if you're an organization where you create many, many maps, I would say probably too many. And I would also say that organizations that will sustain this momentum that we're after, they do the opposite. So they focus on a few important or high impact journeys, define a clear purpose for each of the maps, and are very clear about when and why the map should be used. So let me give you a concrete example of, how can you go from journey insight to business impact? This is super, super simple, but just for the kind of practical aspect of how you can do this. So we've got this concrete example, reducing churn. Imagine an organization with an annual churn rate of 18%. Got it here. Leadership has already said we need to bring this down. The real question is, where do we actually act? So instead of trying to fix churn in general, the organization in this case will focus on one part of the customer journey. Let's say the onboarding and the first 90 days. So in the journey map, a few patterns become very clear. We have the fact that customers are unsure what happens next. They don't reach value quickly enough, and many of them will contact support very early. So these insights are then turned into decisions based on what I said before. So the organization stop sending generic onboarding emails. They will start using one clear onboarding flow with one journey owner accountable for the outcomes. And they will change support from reactive to proactive in the first 2 weeks. So these are quite small but focused decisions, and the result is measurable. So you have fewer support contacts. There will be faster time to value. And over time, we saw that churn drop from 18% to 14%. And that's the connection we've been talking about today, where journey insights lead to decisions, decisions leads or create business impact. So at this point, it's worth being very clear about what actually changes when organizations get this right. And I think it's not just about, better journey maps or anything like that. There are, I would say, 3 concrete shifts. So the first one is the journey work will shift from insights to decisions. The question is no longer, what did we learn? I mean, that one is still important, but what will we do now differently? And the second one is journey work will shift from workshops to governance. Journey insights will show up where priorities and budgets and roadmaps are discussed. And third, the journey work will shift from CX driven to business owned. So CX will still enabling the work, but the business owns the outcomes and the trade-offs. And that combination is what makes momentum sustainable over time. So when those shifts are in place, something very practical happens. Organizations stop trying to improve everything and start making deliberate trade-offs. They stop fixing symptoms downstream in a journey and instead change the few journey steps, perhaps, that create the most of the friction. So, for example, instead of optimizing, let's say, support efficiency, they stop one policy or change one form or start proactive communication earlier in the journey. So support volume goes down, not because agents work faster, but because customers don't need to contact support in the first place. So this is where you've got, both experience and cost to serve will improve at the same time. Now, this will be a pretty short one, but if you take one thing from today, I would suggest it to be this. Before you start journey work, you should be able to answer these 3 questions. First of all is, which decision do we want this journey work to influence? And second, who is it that owns that decision? And third, are we actually prepared to change something once the journey makes it clear where change is needed? So not the exact solution, not the detailed actions here, but the willingness to stop, start, or change something when the insight is clear. Because if you don't have that readiness, or to stop, start, or change, I would say that customer journey work will become more an activity instead of progress. But when you do, journey mapping becomes one of the most effective ways to keep customer focus alive, even when priorities will shift. So I have one final thought, and that is that customer journey mapping is not a CX initiative. It is a way to keep customer focus alive and govern change in everyday work. And with that being said, I will actually stop my sharing. See if I can do that. And there we go. And let's see. And that's it for today, guys. Make sure that you check out the 2 other webinars that we've had. They're on our YouTube channel. And if you see all the 3 of them, you will get the whole collection of the series. And so thank you very much for being here today, and take care. Bye-bye.